Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Brain Bean here again. It's been a while since we've seen a keyboard release from Corsair, and when they reached out to me and told me they had an updated version of the K95 Platinum coming out, I got really excited. Now, personally, I used the K95 Platinum right after its release for about a year or so and really enjoyed that keyboard. So I was very excited going into this review. So with that, let's go ahead and just take a look at this thing and see if this design has held up over the years, or if maybe it's time for them to move on to something else. So with that, let's check this thing out. Secret Lab combines best-in-class materials, a plethora of finish options, and industry-leading comfort to provide the ultimate seating experience. With models for users of all sizes and aesthetic tastes, there's sure to be a chair for any setup. Click the link in the description to find out which chair is right for you. Starting as always with construction and design, the K95 Platinum XT has the same familiar 110 key layout from the original K95, and in fact it uses the same basic chassis. The original K95 Platinum came in two color variants of the aluminum top plate, and the new XT is only launching with a black anodized brushed aluminum top plate. I don't really think this is that big of a deal either way. The old one's two different options really looked pretty similar anyways, so I think it's probably smart that they just limit the number of SKUs for a single keyboard. There's still a little bit of flex when mashing down on the board, and overall build quality here feels about the same as my old K95. The detachable wrist rest though has been changed, and now it has a simple foam padding that's wrapped in a thin leatherette finish. I hate to say it, but this is a bit of a downgrade for me. The original wrist rest was heavy, and the reversible magnetic pad was versatile and gave a real feeling of quality. The new wrist rest just feels cheap. It's very light and offers very little actual padding, and the leatherette is really thin. Really should have stuck with the original design here, guys. If it ain't fixed, don't broke it. If it ain't fixed, don't broke it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. God damn. The underside of the board has the same cable channel that we saw on the original K95, which lets you run something like a normal size headset cable underneath your keyboard, for example. The rubberized pads and rubberized extendable legs are exactly the same as before. Lighting's always been a strong point for the K95, and the Platinum XT is, well, exactly the same, if not actually a little bit worse, and I'll get to why that is here in just a minute. The board is controlled with their IQ software, which remains mostly exactly the same as before, although they did introduce one minor improvement with this release in the form of a debounce delay that reduces double strokes. The 19-zone light bar at the top of the board makes a return, same with the RGB-enabled logo and media keys. All of the keys do have per key RGB as you would expect, but the keys themselves are not as bright and vibrant due to the new keycaps. The Platinum XT comes with double-shot PBT keycaps this time around. Now this is a notable increase in value over the original, as Corsair charges $50 for a set of their PBT keycaps. Now that's a bit overpriced in my opinion, but that's kind of beside the point here. With most competitors pushing out new boards all with PBT keycaps, I do think this is a smart move for them to include them. Corsair's PBT keycaps have nice thick sidewalls, and they have a nice textured surface to them. Although with the PBT caps does come some reduced permeability in the lighting on the keys. This is similar to what we saw with the Razer Huntsman's introduction of their PBT keycaps, although I do think it's worth pointing out that, say, Ducky or Matrix Keyboard's PBT caps, for example, are still nice and vibrant, so it is possible to be done. Still, the lights really don't suffer from the PBT keycaps all that much, and I still would rather take the PBT ones over the ABS keycaps all day long. Now, I'd say this is about a 10 to 15% reduction in overall brightness. Again, it's not a super huge difference, but it's my job to be nitpicky. The font is still the same large and somewhat divisive font that Corsair's gone with for a while, although I will say that I used my original K95 Platinum for over a year and I got used to that font just fine. The spacebar does still come in that obnoxious diamond plate texture that I personally really don't care for, both in feel and aesthetics. And speaking of the spacebar, the infamous Corsair spacebar rattle is a little bit better on this iteration, but not completely gone, as you're going to hear in this sound test in just a second. Switch choice is mostly the same on the new K95, with it being offered in both Cherry MX Brown and Speed switches, although you can now get this board in Cherry MX Blues as well. So you can now get this board in clicky, tactile, or linear variants, which is a nice addition. An interesting thing to note here is that the switches are being advertised with a 100 million keystroke lifespan, while Cherry still advertises their switches at 50 million. So I'm not too sure what's going on with that. Either way though, Cherry switches are still so mainstream these days, and they make some of the best quality switches that are available on mainstream production keyboards. I got my XT and Cherry MX speed switches, and as always, I'm going to give you guys a quick sound test. Now, also speaking of sound tests, if you guys want to hear an extended cut of this sound test, I'm going to leave a link down below where you can find that as well. In terms of extras, the K95 XT brings with it what you would expect from any Corsair mechanical keyboard. You get the 2 sets of textured accent keys for WASD and QWERDF, and new for this particular keyboard are 6 blue textured keys for the macro keys, although since those keys already come with textured keycaps, I think maybe a non-textured set would have been a little bit more useful than just keys in another color. And with this keyboard, Corsair actually includes a Corsair sales logo keycap, which is cool. I mean, hey, I'm all for extras. You also get a plastic keycap puller thrown in as well. The board has full N key rollover, and the USB pass-through makes a return here as well. Again, we see the return of the dedicated button for switching profiles, changing the brightness, and activating Windows lock, and the dedicated media keys with metal volume scroll wheel remain unchanged. The K95 Platinum XT comes in at $200, which is the same price point as the original K95. But I just don't know how to feel about this one, guys. I mean, on one hand, we do see some improvements in the form of the PBT keycaps and the additional profiles being saved directly on the keyboard. But we also get the cheap, dinky feeling wrist rest instead of the nicer older ones. So I'm kind of scratching my head over these changes. I mean, are they enough to warrant a re-release? If Corsair could have just done a little bit more to make this keyboard really worth it, it would have made much more of an impact. It just seems like kind of an uninspired, sort of lazy re-release to be a little bit more competitive with what's going out on the market right now. Now, I always review a product for what it is, and with that in mind, I'd say for the price, it's sort of a side grade from the original. I don't think it's worth the upgrade if you already own a K95. If you do, it's just best to get a set of PBT keycaps and maybe try to fix the rattle on your spacebar, and if you do that, you actually have a better board than what this one is, with a more solid wrist rest. If you don't already own one, it is a good flagship keyboard with, of course, all the dedicated extras you could want in a gaming keyboard. It's sort of the anti-minimalist board, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, especially for gaming keyboards. Some people just like to have dedicated keys for all their stuff. And while it's not a bad keyboard by any means, I really think that Corsair could have just done a lot more to wow us with a new flagship launch than just a rehash with very minor and in some cases disappointing changes. Well, that's it for the review, guys. You know, I just feel like at this point, I'm not so sure if the K95 Platinum's design has really held up well over the years. And certainly I feel like mainstream keyboards are becoming more and more higher quality and sort of more enthusiast minded as we see sort of the enthusiast keyboard side of things starting to influence what we see on sort of the gaming market. And so I think, you know, maybe Corsair's just a little bit behind the wave on this one. So hopefully we'll see something a little bit better from them in the future. But of course, you guys will let me know down in those comments below what your opinion is. I'd love to know what you think. And of course, if you're new here on the channel, hit that subscribe button and ring that bell because there's a lot more videos like this coming for you in the very near future. You can also follow me on Twitter at BrainBean Gaming for real-time updates on the channel, as well as all my giveaway announcements. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.